Hey everyone, welcome to Engineering Everything. The Unity engine is a powerful platform for making everything from 3D games to VR apps to even mobile games. With such power and flexibility, surely it'd take months of learning and practice, right? That's why I decided to learn it in a week. Now I know what you're thinking. He's got to be either a mega brain or a masochist. Well, I'm starting to believe the second one. I found Unity was surprisingly easy to learn and get up and running despite its powerful features. I was able to go from zero knowledge of Unity to developing a full, if a bit short, 3D platformer by the end of the week. And with a bit of motivation, time, and patience, I think anyone else can too. Let's get started, shall we? The first step in my journey was to install Unity. Now let me tell you, one of the hardest parts of Unity was actually installing it. After trying multiple times and getting a bunch of strange errors, I was finally able to find an alternate installation. And with some patience, luck, and a little bit of frantic clicking, it finally worked. After being greeted by the sweet dark mode window of Unity, I decided to just try messing around and see what I could do with just a few minutes of aimless clicking. Surprisingly, it was pretty easy to add in an object and start messing around with its properties. Basically, Unity has a bunch of different types of objects, called game objects, that you can add components to change basically everything about them. For example, you can add collider components to have things not go through each other, audio components to play sounds, and script components to run all kinds of custom logic. This, in combination with cameras and lighting sources, lets you render a scene in good old-fashioned 3D. After getting a bit more familiar with the UI, I figured it was time to start making something a bit more structured. I started by following this tutorial by Jimmy Vegas, and just kind of branched out whenever I wanted to explore something cool. The first step of making a good platformer is to actually make the platforms. I started with a simple cube, but gray is boring, so I started looking into textures and materials. In Unity, it's pretty easy to change how an object looks. Start with a texture, it can be any sort of image, and use it to create what Unity calls material. With materials, you can basically modify that one texture to look 100 different ways by changing properties such as reflectivity and smoothness, as well as adding other textures on top to produce cool 3D effects. After messing around with some material settings, I ended up with a couple platforms I liked. And now for the player. I found this cute little guy for free in the Unity Asset Store, a place where you can get all sorts of Unity things like audio, textures, and models. From this point forward, I decided this was going to be a space-themed platformer, with the goal of getting the astronaut closer to their home on Mars every level. The astronaut asset came bundled with some movement and animation logic, so with that, we have the beginnings of the platformer. Just one small problem. Our little astronaut can't jump. After looking into it a bit more, it turns out that the astronaut came with all sorts of cool animations, including a jump animation, but the logic for them just wasn't implemented. After doing some online searching and a bit of coding, I was finally able to figure out how to get the character to jump. I also linked the jump animation to the action of jumping by using the state machine animation feature of Unity. For the uninitiated, state machine is basically just a way of describing a process such that something switches from one state to another state based on certain conditions. It's used a ton in fields like comp sci and electrical engineering to design different systems. With our astronaut, one state would be the idle animation, where the player is just standing. Another state would be the jump animation, where the player is in the air. You could switch between either of these states by either pressing the spacebar or hitting the ground. After a bit more tweaking, I was able to get it all working pretty nicely. With some of the visuals now in place, it was time to add some sounds to the game. I found some audio clips for walking sounds and background music. I was able to get them working in the game with the audio object component and just a little bit of code. Next, I decided to focus on collectibles, since almost every platformer has them. I found this cool set of asteroid models in the asset store, and made some changes to get something I liked a little bit more. Then I added a light source and set up a simple animation to get it looking a little bit more lively. Now time to mess with the UI to get it to actually do something. Creating a user interface in Unity was pretty straightforward. Basically, create a plane, called a canvas, where you put objects like text, images, and buttons, and it just kind of shows up from there. I found some cool fonts of the theme I was going for, and tried setting up some code to get an icon and number to show when you run into the item. There we go. While I was at it, I implemented some basic pausing functionality so people could take a break when needed. The game was finally starting to come together, but it was still missing some core mechanics like death and a main menu. For death and respawning, it was pretty straightforward to have the scene reload when the player falls by using Unity's built-in scene management functions. The scene in Unity is a stage where all the objects and logic happen. For example, I would have a different scene for each level and unique screens like the main menu. By working with these functions, I was able to implement a basic respawn, main menu, and even the level select. Now that we were getting to the final stretch mechanics-wise, I decided to go back and polish up some things in the game. I added some nicer animations throughout, changed the floor texture to look a little bit more Martian, and added things like death spikes and boulders to spruce up the levels a bit. I even tried adding some moving platforms, but after running into some weird issues with the astronaut model, I decided to just scrap the idea for the sake of time. Now it's time to make some levels. And without further ado, here's what I was able to create after a week with the Unity engine. I'm honestly surprised by what I was able to make in such a short time, going from just an interest in using to what could be considered the makings of a full game. If you want to check it out for yourself, the link is in the description. Don't forget to thumbs up if you like this video, and smack that subscribe button for more cool projects and content. See you in the next one.